Hi, hello what people, I hope you're having a good day, you've had water, you've had some amount of food. I cannot say the same for myself. I just don't like eating in the morning. I do have coffee. Because we're doing a morning stream, with the new year, I wanted to let me backtrack a lot. I've been personally timekeeping myself with a little, grid booklet. And I've realized I work a lot better in the morning. Counting out the hours, I wake up usually about 8 and then cut off the morning at 12. Across several weeks of me counting this out, I am working usually about 20% of the time, and it gets less and less throughout the day. So, we're gonna try out a morning stream and see how that does me. But I just don't like eating in the morning. So, I have my coffee, and I got a gift card for Christmas, and I got myself a little mocha pot, and it's just a tiny little thing. We're talking 2 large shot glasses, tiny. That is literally the configuration of this. It's 2 large shot glasses, you put water and coffee beans in the bottom, and then it's basically a tiny pressure cooker. And it pushes the water through the coffee and up to the top. So I have basically a very tiny, cheap espresso machine. And I am loving it. Because I used to use, I think it's 2 tablespoons of coffee, which would last me a week and make cold brew. I use less than a tablespoon every day to have a delicious, fresh espresso. So today I have a fucked up Americano, aka Americano with simple syrup. Hey, Billy Bob, why is that off? When did that get moved? That should be in the corner. I will hydrate, yes. I have a fucked up Americano. It is an Americano with simple syrup and some froth. Well, no, it doesn't have any froth anymore. Simple syrup and creamer. Because the brand of beans I get, I have hydrated, there we go. The brand of beans I get, you have to have some sort of water with it. That just balances it out. So I had a little hot water after making the espresso, and even when I'm having a cold brew of it, I will make sure it's iced so it balances itself. But today, we are gonna get started. Well, started is a loose term. To put in perspective, do I still have this? I hope I do. So the Nether Hub for Passion SMP is ridiculously large. It is absurd. And to make these materialists, when I'm making a build with Lightmatica, I usually look at the materialist and then I'll write it down by hand for every one and slowly gather each part. But the Nether Hub is so large that it had to be separated out into many schematics. So I made a spreadsheet. There we go. I made a spreadsheet. Look at my lovely spreadsheet. Everything is collected now. I finally finished collecting everything. It took a while because the fastest way to get quartz, especially with the setup I have going on right now, I have 24 masons and 24 toolsmiths. And with that setup, I can get, at max, a stack and a half of emerald blocks per day. And I think it equals out to maximum 13 and a half stacks of quartz blocks per Minecraft day. This is Minecraft day, not real life day. Problem is, I need the iron to keep up with that. So I actually purged all of my iron block stores, including my own personal stash. And I had to spend a while AFKing the iron farm so I could get more. Because with 24 toolsmiths, you can use a maximum of 6 stacks of iron blocks per day. And even going through one row, just 8 toolsmiths takes, let's better math. 12 toolsmiths take a stack of iron blocks per trade row. Just trading with them once. So going through all 24 twice takes 2. And you can usually trade with them up to 3 times a day. They'll refresh twice if you time it correctly. I know way too much about villagers at this point, but we have gathered everything. I have separated all of it out into shulkers. I have I had to run for more shulkers, but I found things while I was out in the end, so that's going to be another video. But today, we need to continue, and I say continue excavating out the Nether Hub. I started a little bit of it, so you guys can get a good idea of what we're actually working with and what the scale this is gonna be. Granted, you'll probably understand more of the scale from seeing the Lightmatic. Schematic, not Lightmatic. Schematic. So let's actually hop in to the game. Game? Oh, is it still on? It's still in Golf Round. That would be a problem. There we go. Lovely. Okay. So I have done 2 of the schematics, which is, this is the central portion and west. Actually, to better understand this, let me grab an image, because I have had, oh, yes, penguin rain. Weather rain. There you go. Oh, I'll make a group. Hello, sir. Goodbye, sir. That's why I'm sitting by the nether portal, by the way. Group. Yep. Open. Boop. Beautiful. Let me grab this image, because I need it desperately, actually, and I should probably pull it up for myself. This is the scale of the Nether Hub. This goes all the way south, east, north, and west. Thankfully, we don't have to go very far west, and I didn't have to do much for north. South and east parts are the hardest. Hello.
Hello.
Do you want me to send you the schematic origins again, or is that not?
Yeah, you could send me the origins. I have the schematics.
Yeah. I have a little chart that has them colored out, and also coordinates.
Oh,
there you go.
Do you want me to grab the drawer with the materials, or do we want that to just sit?
I've been using backpacks, because I have quite a few of them. Feel free to bring the drawer, though.
Okay.
And I did get the west and north portion almost excavated out. Apparently I missed a little bit. Excuse me, sir. Out of my face. Goodbye. No. Thank you.
Well, I'm making myself an ender backpack right now, because I forgot to make.
Oh, yeah. I immediately went all in on backpacks as soon as I could.
Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm weird, and I don't know. I'm weird.
In other mod packs, I religiously live off of backpacks. I will hardly make a base and just purely live off of whatever's in my inventory. I play very differently on the server versus modded.
Same, I agree. In like servers, I'll for sure live off of or just in general, I'll live off of like a backpack. It's just I completely forget. Jesus Christ.
Oh, that's a lot of strider spawns. Okay.
I just forgot that we have ender chest backpack, because normally I don't use an ender chest.
Oh, there I go. Mind block I shouldn't have.
Okay, I'm gonna be at the spawn portal. I forgot to grab the fucking box. I'll get it out some.
It's better to go from top to bottom. I tried doing bottom to top for the north portion, and it just got annoying because then it was difficult for me to access the top portion.
I get that, that's fair.
But the Destructor Hammer is fantastic for this, and it's going to make this a whole lot faster. Hopefully. Oh yeah, how's your New Year's and holidays? Oh, there's that.
It was good. Mainly spent it with my mother, you know, because
Yeah.
it was her birthday as well. So.
Oh, nice. I have my brother-in-law and one of my best friends. Their birthday is like days after Christmas.
Yeah, her birthday's on New Year's, so I
Ooh,
spent most of it with her.
nice. I have
No,
a fun birthday. Every well, it's a little off this time. Every so many years, I get to spend Mother's Day with my mom.
no, that's nice.
So it's I don't know about other families. I haven't heard of other families really doing this. It's a tradition in our house. We just pick whatever dinner's going on. So on Mother's Day, my mom will pick lunch and I'll pick dinner.
Yeah, we gotta do stuff like that. Like, so on my birthday, I like to go out to this place called Leaderboard. It's like a barcade,
Ooh.
and it's like really fun to do.
Oh, I just
And it's just we
realized.
don't.
Sorry.
No,
Carry
go
on.
ahead. You're good.
In my family, for the 21st of like each of the kids' birthdays, my parents like taking them out to this bar nearby, so I'm gonna I'm gonna go drinking with my mom on Mother's Day. Lovely.
Reason. Which way is the longest way? I assume the east is, yeah.
Yeah,
Is
the
that the-
East is ridiculous compared to everything else. It has, I think the first portion has like 37 stacks of cobbled quartz, and the second portion has like 40-something stacks of cobbled quartz.
Okay, is the east what you started on already or no?
I haven't started on East. We're on South right now. Because East is a little
Okay.
more annoying because it's not like fully dug out. There are portions that need to be dug out, but most of it's air. So I'm not sure how difficult that area is going to be. It's far longer, but it's far more air.
Okay, I guess I could start on east then, while you work on
That's-
south.
Yeah. I think the only thing that'd be really annoying about it is the basalt portions.
No, well, I need basalt for my build anyway, so that works out.
Oh, perfect.
Or at least I want
Honestly, I'm just hoarding this netherrack.
blocks I'm not used to. Yeah. Because I don't normally use a lot of, like, random blocks. Like, I want to start using, like, moss for roofs. Like, just
Ooh.
random, like, blocks for stuff that you wouldn't normally expect there. I haven't really...
Reminds me of, I think last season Lilac did a glazed terracotta roof.
Green make
Oh,
it for my...
Why is my phone going on? That is why. It's my own thing. Which, do it up. Thank you.
Oh.
Okay. I think that's why I love using Axiom, because it can give me a bunch of random blocks that I would not expect.
Oh.
I really want to
for
find
this-
a better way for Shulk. Or Skulk.
What is the why we have these set at? Like,
100.
for positioning. 100?
Yeah.
I believe that's set at 100. Would 100 be on the... this room
You do
right
have to
here?
remove the current bridge that's going on. Yeah.
Okay. I believe... Try to tell, because it's hard to tell with the... Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll do up.
And get to this little portion. Oh. Oh.
Okay, so I'm gonna go from the very end of it.
Thankfully, these
And
tunnels are
move to-
just wide enough that you can get away with the Destructor Hammer.
Mm-hmm.
Uma? Uma?
Yeah, because I'll go
Okay.
from the end of the... Start working on that.
And I'm no I tend to hoard netherrack blocks because in the past I've been using them to... The specific example that comes to mind is I used it as a base block to help me mold out a mountain. So I did all the netherrack first and then did dirt on top, so if Enderman stole it, I didn't have to worry so much about falling to my death.
Right.
Wonder what I could use it for this season, though. I guess it's just a good building block for, words. For farms, too.
But that's lava.
Oh. Ooh, this is...
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh.
Oh. Piglin's going crazy. They found gold ore. Oh, jeez. They're already spawning on top. This little ledge from my initial dugout of... Oh, that's all. My initial dugout of all of this. And everything spawning on it.
How many blocks wide is this? Is it...
7, 9.
Okay. So it's not a perfect 5.
Yeah. And it's a 1 block middle, but you can get away perfectly with the destructor hammer. If you do 2 in from each side.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go through the middle and then I'll just loot past the 2 other times to get the side.
Yeah.
Because I don't mind extra work.
Fair. Backpack. I love lagging on my server. That's great. Fantastic. There we go. What's something I'm so happy about? Around Christmas time, I was like thinking of Christmas movies to watch, and one of them I accidentally found on YouTube because it had it for a brief moment. Is Tokyo Godfathers, and it's a anime Christmas movie. Basically, the whole situation of a couple of adults. Not one of them's not an adult in this, but a couple of adults stuck with a baby and they don't know what to do with it.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. I've seen like videos of it.
Yeah, it's a great movie. And I was struggling to find it, and then I realized, oh, one of the services you can find it on is Tubi, and Tubi is completely free. You don't even have to make an account for that if you're on words. If you're on computer, you don't have to make an account. It'll ask you to, but it's literally just a sign in if you're on mobile. And I've been using Tubi more and more because I found out it has a bunch of old cartoons that I love, including one I've been trying to find for a while, Pound Puppies.
Oh.
And I'm so happy. Another one that Netflix used to have for a short... Excuse me. I'm trying to tell a story, Hoglin. Bye-bye. Another one they had... Ooh.
No, you're good. As I'm listening to you talk, a gas decided to shoot a fireball at me, and I'm like, what? And he hid in the schematic, so I couldn't see it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I need to go into the schematic settings to turn off entities, in case. Why do I have self on twice? That's why I have self twice. So I misplaced it the first time. There's race car. It's not the right one. And I have the sun in my eye. I love where my desk is, but it's in the perfect spot that every morning I got the sun directly in my eyeballs.
Yeah, I have blackout curtains, so I don't get that.
I got blackout, but next to my desk is Dusty's little cat tree, and he has a pillow on the windowsill for him, so I have that part of the curtain specifically open for him. I just need to remember to close it. There goes my stool. Close it a little bit every morning. What was that? Schematic. What? Unload both, apparently. I forgot to unload the other one. Where? So many schematics. I'm happy I put them all in a file. Ignore entities. Yes, thank you.
So the new bridge is off center of the old bridge over here.
Hmm?
The old bridge over here is off center from the new bridge.
I didn't make it off center. Or it should be on center.
Not of the old bridge. I have it set perfectly where it is.
In the middle, 5, -4? Or what is it?
It's 3, -4. It's -3, -4.
Yeah. That should be on center with it.
Mm-mm. It's just slightly off.
Let me load up that schematic. Load. East. Now that's on par.
Did I start digging wrong?
I don't know. Hello, welcome. Hi.
That's what I really suck if I started digging wrong. But not really. Either way, the areas that have to get removed, but
Makes it a little easier for you to destruct a hammer. Hi Raven, we are starting the Nether Hub for Passion SMP. Yeah, Dusty.
I'll set it up though.
Silly cat.
Yeah, because I set it up on the I have it set on the this.
Here? 3, -4, 100?
Oh, because I have it -3. I have it -3, not +3.
3 then 4. Yeah, the sun in my eyes. It's part of the curtain he loves to open too.
3's right here. This is 3-3. This is 3-4.
On my compass it says this is 3, -4.
That's... I mean, is that wrong? Yeah, no, that is...
I'm using the... Okay,
3.
I'm using the compass is why it's different. I don't know why the compass coordinates are different when... Okay, so it is right here. I opened up F3, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so this is 3-3 right here, this is 3-4.
Yeah,
so right
okay,
here
sorry
would
about
be
that,
the red
yeah.
ball.
This is the correct
so I
block,
did it.
though. You did it right, I have weirder coordinates. I'm using weird coordinates.
Oh, so you're...
Yeah, mine is weird. You are correct about the number, you are incorrect about the schematic. I used weird coordinates.
Okay, so the placement block for the...
is right here.
Okay, but I mean the chords on the chart are off.
They're probably one off. I think the compass probably rounds it up.
Okay, yeah, because I have exact words.
Yeah.
Because I have sodium extra, so I get like little tag in my top right. So I don't even have to have F3 open to see it.
I wanna change my compass font. I want that to be bigger. I can't see much. Cat! This cat is very annoying. Also, sorry that took a moment, Raven. It's going great. We're slowly getting the Nether Hub going because it's been a minute. The server started a few months ago at this point, actually. And so, that was the wrong spot. So we're trying to get it all up and running. We finally gathered everything, but that means we have to now dig it out and place it. It's gonna take a minute, but it'll be worth it, because look at that. Actually, it'd be better. Which button is it? Which hotkey? Is a hotkey to toggle transparency.
You and your sister. I hate getting on voice call first thing in the morning.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, you're good. It's not even first thing in the morning. It's like 12 for me. I just overslept.
I'm sorry.
I don't have anything going on right now. No, you're good.
I can hear my cat scratching another door. Oh, what am I hitting? Oh. Block missing. Like I'm crouching, what? There's no block in my way. Oh, because there's no block to crouch on. Streams,
It's not
sorry,
your fault, it's just... my voice gets funky, like, if it's too early. It gets, like, really scratchy and stuff.
Stream schedule can be a little wonky at times. I try and stream more often, and I'm hoping to get a proper stream schedule up. Right now, I'm experimenting with seeing how morning streams go. I do plan on streaming tomorrow morning as well. And hopefully we'll keep up morning weekend streams, and hopefully also do some streams also in the morning.
Do we have a tree chop
on
mod?
weekdays.
Yeah, we do.
Yep. Although I'm tempted to actually change the config for the mod because it cuts off at 100. I'm tempted to change it so it'll let us actually mine some of the nether trees because it thinks the
I was very tempted to ask you about it.
Logs.
I was tempted to ask you about it, but I wasn't gonna say anything because I didn't know if you were just gonna be like, it's whatever, it's fine. It's only like a minuscule reason why to change it. Because the reasoning behind me wanting to change it was when at your little like farm thing, the dark oak like to group together.
Yeah, I was having that
like,
problem
weird
too.
Bunches. And it does it with the pale oak too, so it's really hard to like, farm them.
I definitely need to go in and change that config real quick. Where's I have a list of things to do. Let me move a bunch of other things. PSMP. Falling tree config fix. There we go.
I mean, fully, I was just thinking just add like another 0 or something.
Honestly, yeah. Although I think, what's the max? Oh yeah, we could do another 0. Because I'm worried about the durability of the axe. Because I don't want it to just randomly break on somebody.
You can have the durability damage. Ow. It doesn't. It makes sure not to break it, I believe so. I'm not too sure. Is it the Cerulean mod?
It's Falling Tree. I'm pretty sure it doesn't break it. I'd have to double check. I'm pretty sure it doesn't, though. No, not that.
I don't know, because I don't use this one. I use the one by Cerulean.
I'm pretty sure this one doesn't. I've used it for some odd years now.
It probably doesn't. I believe most Falling Tree mods make sure to have like a quality of life type thing to not.
So that means you mostly randomly stream? Pretty much. I'm trying to make sure it isn't anymore, but in large part, yeah. Try and hop in again tomorrow? Alrighty. I look forward to seeing you.
Huh?
Stream chat.
You cut out. You cut out horribly, and then all I heard is, like the end part of Virginia, and I'm like, huh?
I was saying see you tomorrow because there's a header. I'm planning on streaming tomorrow as well, depending on how much work we get done in here. I'm hoping we get all the done. Cat! Oh my god, dude.
You mean all the digging, not all the placing, right? I think that should be like a whole nother stream.
I plan on cutting off in about 2.5 hours. Because that'll be about time for me to go make some food.
Yeah, we should easily get the digging done.
Yeah,
God,
especially, I don't know if you have a destructor hammer. I think you do?
I do. I have the second max one. I stick with diamond because I just use diamond to repair it because mending doesn't seem to work for me.
Oh. Funny enough, I have so many villagers at this point that they actually repair my tools, including the destructor hammer, decently well.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It might just be a bug, but mending's not like potent like at all. It does like one like durability or for the destructor hammer. I think it might be a bug for me, but it's not potent for the destructor hammer.
Yeah, what do you do? Okay. He's just wandering.
So whenever I go like mining for diamonds or anything, I try to carry, or like if I go mining, like when I went mining for quartz, I made sure to bring like what is it, like
anvil
or so diamonds? No, you could just do it in your crafting table.
I thought you couldn't do it if it was enchanted, but I might be thinking Skyrim.
Nope, it keeps it with the enchants too.
Okay. I'm definitely thinking Skyrim then.
Yeah, it's... Well, normally, and you can't, but with this mod, they made it so you can, because that's like the main way to repair them, because they weren't thinking mending was gonna work. Because this is also like a heavy like main mod in Stone Block, which is a mod pack I've been playing recently. So that's the only reason I really know like about the being able to mend it in your crafting table. Because you're not really... you normally can't unless you have the exact same copy of that weapon. Or like that tool, and it gets rid of all enchantment on it. I think besides for curses.
Oh, I have a... Well, setting up the villagers, I maxed out all of them. I didn't have the emeralds to max out the very last guy, and his last trade was Curse of Binding books. And you can't grindstone those. So I just merged them all together because I have a ridiculous amount of XP. And so there's a book sitting in my chest that's just a single Curse of Binding book, but if you try and put it on anything, it's going to cost you like 60 XP.
I'm gonna put that on a pumpkin and make it the most expensive rank.
It wouldn't work on Misty though, and anybody who has Misty's pack, because Misty's resource pack has a no pumpkin blur.
No, it would work the best on them, because then they wouldn't even notice until they open their inventory. What do you mean it wouldn't work on them?
I think it'd be funnier to do Dragon Head then. Everybody would see it, but the person, and be extremely obvious.
Just punch them every so often until their helmet breaks, and then quickly pop down in a dispenser with it. Or convince them to take off their armor and stuff, and drop them in a hole.
Trying to think of who the best person would be for that.
I don't
think Racecar knows we're in a group.
I don't think he does either. I don't know why, but your skin's bugged and you're one of the defaults.
Oh. Is it...
It might just be a me thing.
I have that problem every now and again, too. Like, on the mini-map, yours is Steve Head, but if I open tab, you're normal. So I don't know.
No, one tab, you're messed up, too. I think it might just be... It might be a you thing, because I think Essential didn't load for you then, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe. Let me... wardrobe. Skin.
Oh, please don't attack.
Change a couple skins. There we go. 6.
Oh, there he is.
Hi, Penguin. Or, hey. Hi, Racecar. So many...
Yeah, I fixed it.
Good. Take Misty sign. That's a spot for it. No.
Yippee. I don't think the way I'm deciding to clear this out is the most efficient, but it's working really well.
I love the random bits of lava around here.
That was the most annoying thing whenever I was mining for quartz. I got like 10, 20 stacks of quartz.
Ooh.
From just mining it. I put it all in your chest.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
Like as the cobbled quartz. Because I was like, the whole reason I was mining for quartz was that I didn't even mine that big of an area. I think I took a picture of how big the area was.
I was half tempted to go through the different netherite mines we have and just steal what was there. I stole a little bit while I was getting my netherite backpacks, but it didn't help me out too much.
Oh, I fully just what was it? I just started like a new mine. Higher. Yeah,
God damn it, race car!
I have that sound specifically turned down because of him.
That's fair. You just slid into stream to...
Because I believe I have like global sound specifically turned down. Or I think I have all sounds just turned down. Because I think I was tapped out watching
morning,
the video
so I'm trying to switch up the morning streams. I'm definitely a morning person.
Actually, I haven't checked how much gunpowder's in the creeper farm since the last time I was there.
Oh, by the way, fried rice is fully stocked. Please buy some. And, race car, there is a bowl buyback program. Please use it. Please use it.
Oh, do you want to start buying bowls off of me? Because I've been using bowls of, like, for my own foods, but I don't mind giving the bowls to you.
I have a couple barrels set up that have diamonds in them, and its exchange rate of a stack of bowls is 1 diamond.
A stack of bowls is 16, right?
No, it goes up to 64.
But what is stopping these? Oh, it's the bowls of rice. Why? That really pisses me off.
Yeah. It's probably because they're kind of overpowered, because they have, like, comfort for 5 minutes, or saturation for 5 minutes.
It's comfort, and it stopped your food from going down while it's eaten, which is gonna be really busted with the, what is it, the lunge enchantment and,
oh yeah, I'm keeping an eye out to see if we can get any backport mods.
I'm tempted to go look at how to backport it. The problem is I have to figure out what to do with the copper, because are we gonna keep the copper if we backport?
The copper mod we have, or?
No, like the copper tools. Do we have copper armor?
I don't think so. We're 1.26.
Yeah, I didn't think we did. I mean, you said the copper mod we have. I didn't know what.
We recently added a copper cutting mod, so the like trapdoors and doors are really annoying to make because you usually have to craft them. You can't cut them. We added a mod so you can cut them in the stone counter.
Okay. I wasn't even paying attention to that. I just, like I said,
I need to get better about sharing what mod is what and what they do. I'm literally reading a book right now about business writing. I think I finished
just because I wasn't paying attention. There's a good chance it was just because I wasn't paying attention, because I just reinstalled my entire pack. Like, I grabbed all the mods from the pack you shared and just put it over into mine. Like, deleted deleted everything that wasn't client-side and just put all the pack mods from yours, because I did something, broke all the mods, I was like, screw it, I'm gonna just do this.
Fair. Hello, piggies. Goodbye, please. Thank you.
Because I was working on trying to get Voxy working, but I don't know what was going on, and it just refused to work for me.
How long have I been streaming? I've been streaming, I think it's gonna be 3 or 4 years? This January, actually, the 26th. So I'm definitely streaming that day.
No, actually, all of the top done for
I think that's a Monday or Tuesday.
East one.
Huh?
The top part for East one, I have that done.
Oh, nice.
Oh no, I gotta work on the...
Yeah, bottom part's fun because we gotta destroy the floors. Fucking lava. You suck.
That should be.
I'm
So
curious.
glad I have Swift Snake.
I'm curious now. I got a chat message of how long I've been streaming. I know the anniversary I have set is the 26th this month. But I can't remember. I think I started 22, but I'm not sure. It might have been 23. When was that? Excuse me, Hoglet.
I don't normally watch like streams and stuff. You and like literally one other person are like a few people watch stream because whenever like if we're playing together and you're streaming, I'll just have your stream open just and work.
I'm on my VOD channel, that's why I can't find it. I know my oldest video could give me an idea. I think the only streams I really... oh, my voice. The only streams I really watch are anybody who's in the server, and I think the only one I really pay attention to anymore... I'm following quite a few people, but Grian, because he started streaming on Twitch.
I follow quite a few people, I just don't because I don't watch streams, because I've never, like, understood the point of a stream.
I love watching streams, but I have a huge impulse problem of if I start something, I have to stay there till it's done, which was annoying. I used to watch Sneak Snag a lot, and he does long, like, full-day streams, so I'd be stuck there only watching him, and it'd make it difficult for me to do anything else, or even record. Because I want to be able to focus on recording and not hear somebody else talking in my ear while I'm recording.
Right.
So I used to be a heavy VOD watcher if I was doing this or that, but even that was a problem because I'd want to stay and sit and watch the VOD. So.
Yeah, no, there's like...
God damn it, race car.
I think he's just doing it for the XP at this point.
That's fair.
It's not even good XP anymore because of how many times he's killed it. It's not even good. I think it's like the level of like using the silverfish farm for like a second. Not even like finishing out the potion. Oh, I've actually automated potions, so I need to find a spot to start selling them. Or I've automated 4 potions. I plan on automating 2 others.
It is 22. Okay. So that does make 4 years. Jeez, okay. Sun in my eye. What I like most about the journey? That's a good question. I'm trying to... I feel like Passion SMP has been one of my favorite parts, but also when I first started, I had a world titled First World. It was the first world I ever played on computer, even though it was Bedrock. I still have that world.
Oh, that's not.
And that was the first one ever streamed, and the clips are horrible. It doesn't properly record my voice, it's bad quality, but they are absolutely still my favorite clips ever. And there was a stream lag
gas tears by the end
with
of
sound alerts. And some of those sound alerts had to be like perfectly timed, so I have a lot of good clips from that specifically. I need to actually upload that. I did a stream recently where I went back and watched a bunch of old clips. Why? There's a bunch of holes. I went back and watched a bunch of old clips, and I'm gonna make it into a video. And I need to actually sit down and do that. Thank you for the pipe drop, race car. Or pipe drop? Metal. Yeah, pipe. Metal pipe. There we go. Where's the pipe? Have I reset pipe? Do we even need a reset pipe? How many did we get last time? Let me reset. Reset pipe. Pipe. 1 pipe. There we go. I need to fix my sound alerts. I wanted to go through and add some new ones. I need to... Where's my notes? I need to write down, because I will forget again. The last time I mentioned this was like a month ago. High race car. Sound alerts, right? Sound alerts. I don't think I have a bunch of the ones I used to have. Ah, I forgot to do that part. That's important. Where? Lizard. Piglins, out of the way. Or not piglins, hoglins, out of the way. I think a lot of the sound alerts don't have music going. A lot of the sound alerts are just better when I don't have music going. Because you can actually hear the damn things.
I didn't know you were hand mining at the bottom.
I'm half hand mining it out, half mining it out. Because of the specific spot the bottom's in, and because of this already being somewhat mined, it's just easier for me to do it that way. I think the other one, I didn't hand mine it, because I was able to hit the perfect spots. But because of already having this mined, it's just going to be far more annoying to have to place down blocks all the time.
Please don't shoot a fireball at me, Ghost.
No. How many backpacks have I found? Also, hello my voice.
It's not even like annoying with the gas shooting fireballs at me, it's just like why?
Just slightly annoying.
It's like the slight annoyance of being knocked back.
It's like getting poked every hour by a sibling.
Very much so. My sister started pestering me so much to use my computer. I still live with my sister and parents.
Yeah, same here. I am not paying like $1,300 for a studio.
Prices have gone insane.
Yeah, I live deep in city, so it's bad.
She's been pestering me to use my computer, and I got to the point I was just like, screw it. I'm gonna just either talk to mother about getting you your own computer, or I'm gonna I'll buy you your own computer. Like, it's not gonna be cutting edge, but it just got so annoying. Like, I want to be on use my computer, but you want to play on it. I don't particularly want to be a dick and just be like, no. But at the same time, it's my computer.
Yeah. I know I used to annoy the hell out of my siblings with that one. Because I'm the youngest of 5?
Well, I get the right to say it's my computer because I'm the one who put it together.
Ooh.
And I put it together, like, forever ago. My mother bought the parts, though. So she has, like, slight claim to it, but she wouldn't know what to do with the parts.
Yeah.
But yeah, she bought the parts, and I'm the one who put it together, and I'm the one who's been keeping maintenance on it and upgrading it. So, I mean, around this point, I believe most of the parts are self-bought by me, but I don't remember which all.
I think I'm more so annoyed with my brother for his Xbox 360 growing up. Because I can't remember how or why, but I ended up with some Xbox games. Or we got, like, hand-me-downs. And I was the only one that actually, like, enjoyed playing them. So I'd always ask, hey, can I use the Xbox today? Because that was around the time the motion sensor came out, so they were making a bunch of motion sensor games. And they had... there was, like, an Olympics fitness one, and... what's the word I want? Like, activity clubhouse one. I can't think of any better word than that. It was like, oh, you're on a raft in the rapids, and you gotta move around, or, oh, this is an obstacle course, move out of the way. Private tennis room, and you gotta hit the ball back and forth. etc.
Right.
Although now that's switched over to my nephew. He's like, Uncle, I really just want to play Minecraft with you. I really just want to play Roblox.
Yeah, and that's another main reason why I was like, I don't mind getting her a computer. So I was like, if I get her a computer, she's gonna end up probably playing with me anyway, so I don't care.
Yeah. Mostly Minecraft is what I stick to, especially on the server. Thursdays and Mondays, I will usually switch it up sometimes.
I have yet to play.
I've been doing Castle Crashers Thursdays with a group of people.
They're just top priority.
That is so much fun. I've been meaning to make a video of that too.
Like, I have the Coffin of Andy and Lele that I started and have yet to finish.
Oh, sign, Reb. Wait, sign. Oh, this spot. Okay. Boop. I'm not even sure if we need a cherry village portal anymore. But I'm making it anyway. Although it helps to get that far out there, because it's a little farther than Misty.
Yeah, so am I.
Yeah. My next goal is gonna take a minute. But I do want to try and make the server horse-friendly, aka adding a bunch of passing bridges, and I do plan on slowly designing a bridge that goes all the way out across the ocean to you.
Just follow the coast, because that leads very close to me, and then I can build a bridge over. Because I do plan on expanding out towards that direction anyways, because there's a village over there that I want to...
Oh, yeah!
...kidnap them. There's like 2 villages
over there. Yeah, we need to do golf around.
I
need to talk to the server about that. That's so... It's golf around. You do have to usually pay for the game, but it does have a light version, which lets you play majority of the game, minus some odd maps. I'm pressing the wrong buttons. And it is so much fun. Yeah, I've been playing Minecraft for a long time, and it's my favorite medium for art and bit.
Friends were pestering me, and I was on a deal, so I was like, yeah. I
might have mucked up the portal.
What do you mean?
I'm not sure. I went through the spawn portal, and I ended up by my starter house, by my barn, and not in the portal. So I'm destroying this one, I lit up the other one, and hope it should connect properly, because I didn't move the portal. It's been moved like all of 3 blocks. It should connect up, all things accounted for. It should be fine. I don't see why not. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, if it gets...
I don't know.
To a point, we can, we could always add the mod. I believe it's only server side too. It's another portal fix, where I believe it gives you, like, a little, like, tag whenever you go through a portal. Okay. And it will only put you out at that portal if you're within range of it.
Yeah, that might be a good one, because I know I need to move a couple of your portals.
My portals?
But yeah, I've been doing Minecraft for about 10 years now. Over 10 years, actually. Because the first time I really started playing it, I got it for my 10th birthday. Well, I already had a copy of PS3 Minecraft, and I got a PS3 for my birthday and started really playing it. But most of the builds you see around here, I've made. Yes?
Where'd you go?
I've been, like, and I'm like, muted. I brain scattered. I, like, don't want to, be constantly talking to chat while you guys listening in, so I mute for each of those, but then I get sidetracked by something else. I know I need to move your portal a bit, so that's one slightly annoying. I think Lilac's the other one that I need to move a little bit. I can't. No, I don't know if I need to move her too much. I have to do it increments is the best way.
Well, the reason I'm saying that is because if it accidentally, like, decides to snap to a different spot, it could very well snap into her building.
From moving around the portal, I can get away with moving it a bit, because I've tested this on a copy of the world.
Hmm.
I just have to move in, like, increments of 4, I think. Because I tried doing 8s, and it did not like that. Where was I? Cherry Village, right. We were talking about the cat. God. So the sun has moved, so it's perfectly in my eyes now. And Dusty was grabbing the curtain so he could look out, and he was just flashbanging me.
Yeah, my dog likes to break into my room and just lay on my bed. She's a lazy bum.
Dusty's smart, but only when he wants to be, and usually for the utmost annoying thing possible. So he doesn't scratch on the doorpost like the rest of the cats. Thankfully, he has not picked up that habit. However, he has learned we live in an old house. And with said old house, the doors can kind of rattle in their sockets if you push on them. So he will push his paws against it over and over, so the door shakes in its socket and it will wake up the entire house. So he's guaranteed to get out of whatever room he's in. It's the most annoying thing possible. He's also learned that because it grabs people's attention, it's a very good way to grab people's attention so he can get treats. He's a butt. He's just a flat-out butt.
Cats are just greedy little buggers.
Absolutely. We got a big old large fat cat right now. Her name is Jenny. My grandma had to move out and couldn't take her with. So we've ended up with her because she's a giant Maine Coon, but she is the most definition of a scaredy cat you will ever meet. Like, if you get up too fast, she will run to the other side of the room bad. So and because she was my grandma's cat, she's a big fat cat too. So she's just a huge thing. Oh, there goes race score. Oh, penguin, never mind. Alright. Oh, there we go. Oh.
I got kicked for chat validation error.
Okay.
I went to say okay to race car leaving, and it just fucking kicks me. Like,
Alrighty, no worries.
No! Oh, it's the right. It'll be fine.
Wait. Okay?
Yeah, literally that. I have to go grab fire res from my. I have to grab fire res from my base.
Oh.
I accidentally dropped my pickaxe into the lava.
Ooh, yeah.
That's fine. It's netherite. I believe advanced netherite can't burn, right?
It shouldn't. I don't see. Oh, there you go. I don't see why it would.
It's creeper. I always do that.
Oh,
I always stop at the creeper farm.
Yeah, I have the exact same problem. My problem is I overshoot to the Enderman farm. Or the stronghold. This is another one I need to add to my list. Fix up Enderman farm or find some way to make it better. So I remember you explaining, oh yeah, it does have to be lower because that helps the spawn rates.
Mm-hmm.
Did I get it? I didn't do lilac. I did.
I mean, the spawns are good where they're at. It's just, it's so much better lower.
Yeah. Because the old one, dude, don't pay attention to me. Back off. Back off. Thank you. Ogden head, I guess. The one last season was pretty good. I almost wanna... That was not the right tool. I used the destructor hammer when I wanted the pickaxe. I'm almost tempted instead to... I could, if you want to like collaborate on this, I'm really tempted to set up a community silverfish farm, so it's really accessible either in shopping district or spawn town, and then you can set up the infested potion, like the potion shop next to it.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking like a back alley thing. That was one of the first few potions I automated was the infested potion, since I mean everybody's been using them.
Yeah.
And I was planning on selling them. Because I also have fire res and sharpness, or not sharpness, strength, and what it was the other one. I automated like 4 potions, and I'm trying to remember them all. Oh, swiftness. It was swiftness, strength, and swiftness, strength as an infestation, and then I was planning on automating invisibility and instant damage. But instant damage and invisibility need fermented spider eye. I don't think I have the ingredients for fermented spider eye.
I could switch around. In my base, I have a bunch of mob spawners right now. I could switch around one of them, because it does I have a storage doors set up, so it does currently collect spider eyes, but I have a void upgrade attached to it. So I could always set off another one, specifically for spider eye.
Well, if you just upgrade the capacity to it, you don't even need to do that. You just upgrade the capacity to it, and it'll only void it when it reaches its max, so it doesn't clog the system.
Alright. I was using the chest for so long, but I got tired of having to score through all the arrows.
Yeah, I may or may not have, like, not kidnapped, per se, but, like, just taken a bunch of bones from you the other day, because I was needing bone meal. Oh, why did it do it then?
I AFK it a lot. So, yeah, no worries. Plus, I literally can't... I've been using the bones specifically for mini autocrops for fried rice. I physically can't make any more right now. I have the materials. There's no space for them. I have, like, 3 rows of fried rice, and the entire shop is filled with fried rice. Not to mention, I still have, like, 1,000 of each ingredient.
Lovely.
Model's looking something...
I need to get, beetroot, because for when I'm in combat, I want to start, eating the mixed salad, because it gives, 5 seconds of, regeneration.
Oh.
Race car's not even on!
Oh, wait. That's mine.
What did you do?
That's a raid. Hi, Misty.
Oh.
I genuinely thought it was race car too. No, that's a raid. Hi, welcome. Hi, everybody. Also, there's a question earlier. I'm gonna say this real quick. Model's looking nice, something commissioned. I made this myself. This is the 4th time I've made a model, and I am very happy with it. Thank you for the raid of 15. Goddamn. Hi, hello. We're working on the Nether Hub. I'm slowly moving portals around. I was gonna do this early. What is the button to... I might have gotten rid of it. What is the button? That's the wrong button. There's a button to change... Hi, Hoglin. You're not attacking me? Okay. I ain't taking it for granted. Never... You waited for me to open the menus. There's a hotkey to change the transparency. Ghost block? Ghost?
I have it set to page up and down. Are you talking about the render layers?
the render of the schematic, because I have it set to transparent. I know there's a way to change that. I've probably skipped over it. Invert over those block render states. Which one is it?
For my base.
Just okay, hold on. I'll be right back. I'm gonna show off the actual world. This is a bunch of schematics that I have set up for the Nether Hub, and it's gonna look fantastic once it's done. And want to show off real quick the model we have and what I used to make the schematics, so you can actually get an idea of what this is gonna look like in the end. I am somewhere random. This is not where I'm supposed to be. We need to go down here. Nope, let me down. Let me down. Let me down. I want to show off. There we go. This is what it's going to look like in the end. Okay, bedtime. I got like 3 hours of sleep. Oh no. Have a good nap, Misty. This is what it's going to look like in the end. It's going to take a whole lot of quartz, but we have everything collected at this point. I spent the end of the year doing basically nothing but get quartz. And it's going to look fantastic. So, don't do this to me. Alright, hold on. I have to restart everything. Because it's like, oh, you have to, it's not working. You have to restart everything. BRB Minecraft being dumb about joining. There we go. Send a penguin a quick message so she knows what's going on. I also sleepy. Alright. Enjoy crafting the mines, thank you very much. We're gonna be doing more mining than crafting, unfortunately, but hey, at least I have good tools for that. And hopefully, this doesn't take too long to load. It shouldn't. Modrinth is pretty good about loading, but it takes a second sometimes. But hi, hello everybody, I am MutationCIP. Unfortunately right now, streams are kind of random, I'm trying to get a hang of things. Today we've been streaming morning, so I can test that out, and I do plan on streaming tomorrow morning as well. And hopefully we'll get a schedule going up soon here. Thank you for the follow. There is the Discord. Let me do a little, I'm pretty sure I have it set to this. There we go. There is the Discord that you are free to join. And hopefully I want to get a schedule going on there, and I think I still have all the socials set up. Socials? Yes? Is it that? No, it is not. Did I just miss... What did I do? I know that is a command. The social? Yeah, nope. Add you on Discord? Okay. Thank you very much. What is the command? I know that is a command. What do I have the command set to? Is it links? It's links, isn't it? Link? Which one is it? What did I set it to? What is it? I don't have it anymore, that's what it is. Bruh. Never mind then, okay. I thought I had all the links. I need to get that command going again then. And we need to get back into the group. There we go. Okay. I need to fix so many things. I need to use Blue Sky more too. Blue Sky and Tumblr both.
Now I need to mute thing.
I messed that up. And I haven't done that.
Oh, I don't want to sleep. Stop telling me sleep paralysis, demon to sleep.
Oh no.
The Phantoms.
Oh.
I've been good about sleeping. I even put a new bed over by my work site where I'm building. Just apparently haven't slept in 3 days in game again.
Because we've been in the Nether.
Really?
Be able to get back on next week. Okay, Billy Bob. No worries.
Really? bro! I can't get past the achievement! Goofy, I guess. Oh, yeah, I got another one.
Guested?
You ever want... Oh, no. Tears Music Disc. You ever want Tears Music Disc? I got. I now have 3.
I don't know why this happened. Like, all of my music disappeared. Don't know where they went.
This is This is like a... Oh, English! The language I speak. Ugh. But, that's why I like to display mine. Because... Oh, all this gold right here, we're gonna have to remove.
Oh yeah, that portal. I was gonna take down the gold and then re-add it after. Or at least like put it in a chest for them.
Okay. That's fine. Because I just...
I'm not sure if it's in the schematic. I might have forgotten to add that back into the schematic.
That's a possibility. That's fine.
Oh, blocks disappearing. Blocks disappearing from your base.
Yeah. Yeah, I literally went in to go grab a hoe real quick for the leaves of the nether trees. I mean, I've been meaning
the leaves, but not leaves, according to Falling Tree.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they work on Falling Tree.
Yeah.
They're just something different.
I wish they'd actually count as leaves, but damn. Okay, there we go. Lilac's portal very slowly moved. I'm gonna move all the heads too.
Oh.
Oog.
What are we doing with those 2 heads right next to my portal?
Do you want to keep them?
I'm gonna use them to signify that's my portal.
Okay. Yeah. That's why there's random, seemingly random. That's why there's quartz slabs, normal quartz slabs, to show the areas that people can use to decorate their portals.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's area around
of
people's portals that they can use to decorate.
Okay. But yeah, I use it just outside of the portal just so I know that's like the where I need to stop for mine. I mean, if anything, I end up stopping way too soon and at the creeper farm, and I'm just like, screw it, I'm gonna go through the creeper farm.
Where? Diggy! Out of here! Give me a super jump.
Oh, fun one.
Another head for Lilac's portal.
Did we get rid of all the heads that were at the creeper farm? I don't remember.
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they're still there.
Okay. Well, I think Racecar was saying that they got rid of them. I don't remember, though.
Maybe? I don't know. That's something to check.
Like I said, I haven't really been on. The only thing I really did over there that, like, by the portal was switch the, armor stand thing over to me. Because that's, you know, my area now. Or that is my area.
I think I've mostly been just AFK at my base to gather all the quartz. Oh, out of my face, lava. Thank you.
I love electro lag. It's so fun.
God damn it, cat! How many times? How many? Sir?
Yeah, I got lucky with the EP pet option.
Dusty's a Turkish Angora, and the number one reason we even know this at all, one, he absolutely looks like it. Two, they're kind of marked Their breed acts a lot like dogs. And Dusty definitely is. They're extremely playful and loyal.
Well, so I have my dog Brownie. She's a German Shepherd pit bull, so she's very like rambunctious and energetic.
Ooh.
But she doesn't like to show it. It only like she sleeps like on my bed. Like if I'm in my room playing games, which is like 90% of the time, she just lays where my pillow, because I use my pillow as like an armrest. My desk is way too small. God, getting harassed by mob.
It's always when you're telling a story, too. Like, they don't touch you when you're just chilling out. But the moment you start trying to talk or do anything, they're like, hey. Oh my god, speaking of.
Apparently there was a blaze dungeon sitting right here, and I didn't know about it.
There's like I know the exact spot, I couldn't tell you the coordinates. But there is a spot before the portals, after the sky portal, that has a bunch of dungeons. I only noticed it when I was making the schematic. There's like 3 over there.
Oh. Yeah, well, I just broke one of them because I didn't even think about the spawner. I really should have, because I made a blaze farm.
Oh yeah, for the potions, huh? Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. And I was just gonna move it over to the overworld and make a blaze farm like that.
Yeah.
Because, I play on this other server. It's not, like, a small group server. It's more of, like, a public, just everybody plays here type server. Called Firestarter. And, I play out there, and the main way you, like, people make money and, get XP is there's this enchantment that a custom server chat called Silk Touch 2.
Ooh. Oh, I can.
And you can pick up spotters. So everybody just kidnaps a bunch of blaze spotters and just uses them for free money and XP.
Sounds about right. That's the wrong button.
So if you fly in the Nether, you cannot find a single blaze spawner. You have to go to someone's base.
Feels like finding shulkers in this server.
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked if we could set some aside, because then I'll just make a shulker farm.
Okay, that's what you meant.
Yeah, because I'll probably just copy SB737's design from the Lifesteal series.
I don't think we have it on the server. I'm tempted to add it. I don't know if it is available for our version, but there is a mod that will reset structures. But I don't know how that would affect... that's the wrong tool! Right into a lava pit. I don't know how that'll affect where you are lagging out a lot. Oh, I heard a syllable. Oh, there they go. Restructure the words. The words. The voices. They aren't telling me anything. Oh my. Wrong buttons over and over. Temple. There's a temple at spawn. Penguin, she built a Coliseum. That's the word I want. Coliseum over it. I don't know how that would affect it. Considering the temple's completely gone now, so I imagine it wouldn't respawn, but I don't know. I don't know how that affected. I need one. I keep using the destructor hammer because I'm like, oh, 1 over from the hammer is the pickaxe. No. I need to put little ham back. Because that's consistently ruined me. Without fail. Jeez, okay. me look. Okay, yeah. There we go. Oh,
Hello.
hello, welcome
I don't
back.
know what happened.
I don't know either.
I don't even remember what I was talking about.
I was talking about attempted to add a structure respawn mod, and I wasn't sure how that affect the Coliseum because it was made over that temple.
Yeah, but I don't even know if it would work for those mods. I think that fully would be a we kind of need to test that.
Yeah. I could look through reviews and see about that.
Yeah. Are you for sure gonna like add spheres if I could find a backport mod for them?
Yeah. I really want to especially find like a shelf backport. I'd love to have all the shelves and copper golems because they're just so cute. They're so cute. Not to mention their redstone application.
Yeah, I was about to say easy storage systems.
Yeah.
I mean, I just use the drawers.
I wonder if... I don't know if they would, but it's technically a container. If a copper golem can use a barrel, maybe it could use the storage containers? Granted, it's useless with the controller, but...
I believe they can, it just... You would have to, like, pipe it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Excuse me! Every single time I go to tab out or open a menu, a Hoglin's right there. Swear it smells it. Negative -2, -9, 144, 100, yes.
Oh, I'm like, where do I have my browser? It's because it's open on my second monitor stream.
Unload that. Load self 2. There we go. Is that? Yeah, that's right. Okay. Perfect. At this point, I'm mostly regretting just the fact that I already dug out parts of this. If I left this as like a 3x3 or even a 3x4, would have been so much easier. But no. I mined out a little curved root that was completely unnecessary and not used at all. Granted, I kind of made a curved roof in the design, but it's way taller. So, useless. Oh good, Hoglin dying. Fantastic. What? I'm mining at Y106 and I just found 2 ancient debris.
I just found the thing you wanted.
I'm gonna throw that in backpack.
Did you hear me?
Hmm?
I said I think I might have just found the thing you wanted.
The thing I wanted?
The shelves.
Ooh! Hell yeah!
Maybe. I don't know. Let me move to where I'm not gonna... Oh, no. I'm not getting caught. I'm getting attacked.
If you stand next to a portal, you should be safe.
I'm just gonna build into the wall.
Fair.
Yeah. I just found the backport itself. So I'll
Hell
send
yeah,
you a
okay.
link to it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Problem is it's on curved forge, so...
Have to transfer it over.
Yeah.
Probably why I couldn't find it. I wasn't searching thoroughly for it. I was just like, if it's on Modrinth, it's on Modrinth.
But yeah, now I'm gonna look to see if I can find, backported, spears. Because I really want to try using the spears. Never really actually, like, gotten to use them.
Do you think the spears on Riptide would work together?
Possibly.
They should.
Yes, I believe they do, actually. I believe they do, actually, but I'm not too sure.
Would be just fine. Yep. Why am I hearing so many gas? I found your mine! I found... I found the mine. The quartz mine. That's why I'm hearing gas, because some gas spawned down in it. Downed in it? Yep. We're sticking with it.
I don't even know where you're at.
I'm over by the end portal.
I'm using free cam.
Yeah.
I don't even
Have
remember
your
where
chunks
I
out that far?
Hey, Bobby.
Oh. Oh, yeah. Right.
Oh, yeah. I forgot I dug it, like, right there. Yeah, I didn't think I dug it there.
Apparently there's string placed there.
Because the thing is I didn't even start over there. I started, like, way, like, just underneath my portal.
Ooh.
Or just underneath the side portal that race car had to the dirt. I dug out that entire area, yeah.
Spot?
I completely forgot about that.
Probably. Portals are so picky. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, that should be fine. Okay. This is one of the few scenarios Big Ham is extremely useful. I had the inventory space. Take you. Excuse me, you. Thank you. Steal your heads. And that should be perfect. Yes. So happy for the hammers. It makes collecting the obsidian so much easier.
Thing is we have such a weird version of backport too.
Yeah.
Because I found the spheres, but it's only for 1.8 or 1.21.8. And the shelves one is advertised for 1.21.8, but they have it so you can do it on 1.6 with the 0.6.
Because
it's such a
1.8
weird
was like
version.
The update, or the fixes. 6 added something that I can't remember off the top. I think 6 was the happy gas. 7 added this frickin' lava chicken, whatever. And 8 was immediately after with fixes. Huh?
I believe we have lava fixes. I believe we have lava chicken in this.
Nope.
Oh.
7's lava chicken.
We did. Okay.
We have lava lamps. No lava chicken.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm almost tempted just as like partly joke, but just for the goofs. Or, mainly for the goofs. Words. I would like to have them. To make an apartment complex in the shopping district. And to, like, fully decorate it as just a modern apartment complex randomly in the middle of it all. That if you need to, you could just stay at it.
I mean, is it within reason to move to?
We'd have to find updates for all the mods. And I don't remember, I think it was Carry On was the reason we originally were gonna do 1.7, or 0.7, but Carry On only went to 0.6 at the time. They might have updated Carry On at this point, but...
Carry On works all the way up to 0.11 now.
Oh, good.
So, let me actually look at all the mods and see which one would...
Yeah.
don't have
and see if it's worth dropping some mods in favor of updating to the newest. Because I would love to update to the newest, as long as we can keep the important mods.
or because I'm trying to think what all mods are like the main ones that we are worried about.
Advanced netherite, hammers, backpacks, farmer's delight, stoneworks, and storage delight are the main ones used.
I know Farmer Delight has one, but it's not the official mod. It's like a different one, but it's like the same.
And then
It's literally
several
the
of the macaws as well, because those are used
Okay, I
across
can
the
check the
server.
macaws. Because the Collier Happy Gas and stuff like that works too. So let me check the macaws. Oh, the Blahaj. Is the Blahaj? Yes, it is.
Blahaj isn't extremely necessary, honestly. It was a funny thing, like, oh, this is what actually had people join the server at first, but I don't think it's been used at all this season. I used to be, like, extremely on the Blahages, but I think I got one totem at the beginning of the season from looting that mansion, and I haven't bothered since. That's why I should make a raid farm. I found a pillager outpost that has the chunk error. It has the spawn error, so that'd be a perfect spot to set up at least a portal, so we can easily get more Bad Omen.
Yeah, because I want to make a, wouldn't really be a farm, but a trial farm.
Yeah.
How do you spell macaw?
M-A-C-A-W, I think.
Yeah, then.
There's another thought in my head, and it just disappeared.
Which ones do we have? We have the windows. We have the...
we have windows, lights, trapdoors, doors, stairs and balconies, and paths and pavings.
Okay.
We don't have all of them, but we do have most of them.
Okay, so the latest for those on Modrinth is 1.10, but I believe
fences and walls,
they're up to...
too.
I believe Macaws is up to 0.11. No.
I'd imagine so. I think it's been... It's not been super long since it's updated, but it hasn't been super recent either.
Okay, so Macaws is only up to 0.10, so that's the most recent we could go, but everything else is up to date.
I think, 0.11 is the spear, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, but the spear backboard I found, worked on 0.10.
That's perfect. If we update to 10, it'll be a little easier. Okay.
But yeah, because
if we upgrade to 10, it'd be easier to find backports, though.
Yeah, so let me actually look for 0.10 backports for spears.
Oh.
Okay.
I have finally hit a full inventory. Oh, nice. So probably gonna upgrade to 0.10. Or at least try to.
Yeah, it should be... I'm gonna be honest, it should be fairly simple.
Yeah.
The only thing is just make like a... duplicate the world, So, you would want to basically take the download of the world, switch the mod loader over to switch the version over to 1.10, then delete all the mods, reinstall all the mods, so that'd be a matter of, you probably have to go through and find. Do you want me to go ahead and start looking or to start making a pack that has the .10 versions of all the mods that we have.
Yeah, that'd be great,
Just
actually.
so it's simple for you.
Yeah, that'd be
'Cause
fantastic. I don't know how
Yeah, 'cause-
soon that would be done, or like, that is updating it myself. I don't know how soon that'd be done, because I want to get the Nether Hub done, at the very least.
I'm thinking we could probably do it.
And I have a few more things I want to get done for the current episode I'm working on.
I think that'd be like a perfect in-between episode type of thing. So,
yeah.
if anything, we could possibly do it tonight, if that's like within reason for you.
Saturday, do I have anything tomorrow? No. Yeah, I should be able to do that.
Okay, so let me get working on the pack. I'll just literally stay in the game.
And maybe we could just, only do all the dig out today. And then, before we start building, switch the world and mod over.
Right. Oh, wait, what is the mod that adds the cobble stuff? Because I gotta...
Stoneworks.
What is the mod for that? Because I gotta double check for Stoneworks. Oh, it's by 5. For sure it's updated to 11. Yeah,
Okay.
it's already updated to 11. I didn't realize it was by 5. I was tempted to talk about chipped, but I feel like that might add...
I really want chipped. I've been
want chip so bad.
Yeah.
I love chip.
I've been keeping an eye on it, but it hasn't updated since early 21, I think. Last I saw.
It hasn't?
Last I saw.
I can go check.
Because that was one of the ones I was seriously hoping and holding out for.
I could have sworn it was. That's gonna be so sad.
Oh, we need to check looter too.
Oh yeah, I can check looter. Looter should be simple. Hey, maybe we'll get our stuff back.
The stuff?
The ones by the tree. The chest by the tree.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of how to remind you, but I forgot there was one. I could have been like, oh, the light chest by the tree.
The spawn tree. I need to add that to my list of re-add. Elytra.
Oh, it's not
to spawn tree.
That's so sad.
Yeah, Chip hasn't updated in a hot minute.
I love Chip so much.
It's so great, especially for all the little, like, I love,
the little tool.
I can't remember if they got rid of it or not, but for a little while there, you could change barrels to, like, look like netherite safes, and it was my favorite thing.
I believe you still can. But I also really like just the workbenches themselves. They look so good, and they add so much life. Just the little simple builds.
I specifically used the wood bricks a lot. Or the fake woods.
PSMP, yeah. Fabric, select game version, 1.21.10.
Okay, I was just doing this a bad way. I could have absolutely just been placing blocks for the destructor hammer. Yeah, some reason I forgot about offhanding.
Yeah. So many people I've noticed forget about the offhanding mechanic, and it's not like annoying to me. It's just I'm like, how do you forget about it?
Because I usually have my free hand open for carry on.
Right, and
I used to keep a totem in my offhand all the time, but I use first person model, so it gets really annoying having things in my offhand.
Yeah, I forget you used first person model. But Bedrock you can't use it.
Yeah. I think I might still actually have played Bedrock longer than I've played Java. Because I've been playing Java consistently for a while, but I think it's Bedrock's still longer.
The Destructor Hammer, that's from Just Hammers, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, like, I was getting the right mod, because there's like 30 other hammer mods.
Yeah. Oh, hello. Out of my face.
Let me actually do this, because I'll... hello, Piglin.
Yeah, they always show up
and then I can
just the wrong time.
Hmm?
They always show up at just the wrong time.
Oh, that's why I specifically only have my boots, because I don't like the look of the events netherite.
Hmm.
Like, for you, the blue works, it looks very good, but for me, it's just like, none of the colors really work for my skin. The emerald's close, but it's... Oh, never mind. I was like trying to search on the wrong thing.
There you are.
Be forewarned, this is gonna have client-side mods too, of like mine.
Okay. I fell down that hole again. Yeah, no, I mined none of that. Okay.
Because all I'm doing is I just have the game like not minimized, but the shrunken size off to the side and just have mod menu open. Because I have...
No! And lava everywhere.
Oh, great sob. One of the newer mods you just added is an option, the banner text one.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
That one's alright, though. It's annoying, but you can just make it yourself.
I mean, you did make a bunch of them, didn't you?
I only made enough for the few things I did, and even then it was annoying. Because the banner text, it's literally just... Yes, I made them slowly by hand. That's the only way you can do it without the mod, because I made them before the mod. The mod, the numbers are just a template. The ones I made are slowly combining a bunch of things and using some, not exploits, using some tricks in order to make it look like it's the number.
You're gonna hate me, but you can, if you take a colored banner and a white banner and put them in your crafting table, it'll dupe the banner.
Good to know.
But yeah, so it dupes the banner. It helps a lot when making banners, so you just have to have, and then you just put them all in.
I don't think I slowly did every one by hand. I think 1, 2, and 3, I just had 2 in the table at the same time. 4 was only, I only needed 1 of 4. Yes.
Do you,
I'm pretty sure that's in the mod pack.
That's also because I'm probably searching the wrong spot. I can find the... Because F3, better F3 is... I don't know. Last thing...
Are you kidding? Why with the families of hoglins? What is this? Out of my face. Out of my face. Out of my... Oh, out of here. Out of here. Be gone, child. Thank you.
The poor child. What did the child do to you?
It hit me.
Oh, you're just being mean.
Yeah.
It looks very good, Shop.
Yeah.
Younger child. That's a very weird way to say that, but yeah.
You're like half breaking up, by the way.
Oh, sorry.
No worries.
Should we switch over to a Discord call?
Sure.
Okay.
Leave. And we can go over to... Yeah. This one. No, that's the wrong one. This one. Oh, I'm cutting. I'm cutting out, apparently. There we go. Hello.
So yeah, I'll just probably have this open on the side. I'll leave the grouping game. Okay.
Okay.
Where did you get the blasting plus? Oh.
I got it on Modrent.
So what all blocks does it make smeltable?
I think it makes everything but one, which I had to get a different mod for. I think Ore Blocks is the only one that doesn't.
Ore blocks was the only one that makes it blastable. Is the only one. But it makes everything else blastable.
I think so.
It doesn't seem blasting raw metals works, but not plus.
That's alright.
Blasting plus is.
I think blasting, it's not like super necessary. It's just a nice quality of life thing. I think most of our mods are just quality of life stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, would we rather just having like the plushie instead of it being a totem? It's a plushie for the blahaj. Because it also adds a bread pillow.
Sure.
And brown bear. Because then people can also have their own custom totem.
The Blahaj does have custom totem textures. It can be different colors or different pride flags. You just gotta rename it.
Ah. Well, I meant like the texture packs where it's like your skin and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Stuff like that. So then people can use their normal ones. How does the calc mod work?
The what mod?
The calc mod.
Oh, it's a in typing thing. It's not as useful as I thought it'd be. Like I can do /calc craft piston and do like 6 of them. It'll tell me I need 6 ingots, 18 planks, 24 cobblestone, 6 redstone dust. It can calculate a bunch of other things. LA storage barter. Nether overworld. Stack to item, signal to item, second store, heater, something. I don't know what half of these are, but as a hopper clock one.
I don't know. I never.
It's not necessary at all. I just thought it'd be nice to help with crafting things like pistons and such.
I have it already in the thing. It was just I haven't used it and I didn't even know we had it. Or I forgot.
Yeah, I need to get better about explaining what mods we're adding and how they work. So I think it was Nifly. There's so many usernames, I don't know anymore. They were very upset that their horse got nerfed, quote unquote, when I explained, oh yeah, you just have to train the horse now. And instead of listening, they just killed the horse. And I'm like, you're not going to find a better horse in the wild. They're all the exact same starter stat. But it does mean you can have even better horse than you did have. You just have to actually use the horse, which is why I want to make the horse server, horse server friendly, the server horse friendly. Jeez.
Yeah, the only horses I have are the what is it? I'm trying to think of what they're called. The skeleton horses in my backyard.
Yeah, I have Sanic, who was a wild horse. I found those really fast. But he's just a normal horse now, so I'm gonna train him up. I still need to actually test this and see. I'm curious if...
Running into a wall doesn't work.
Okay. And I think it takes a while for them to train up, because I tried it a little bit. I know I have a bunch of waypoints across the overworld, so I might just use Sanic for that.
Error notifier?
No clue. Oh, I think that was added because of Misty's resource pack.
I never even used her resource pack.
It gives you like a bunch of this warning, that warning when you first use it as like conflicts. But she has it fixed for those conflicts, so it's pointless to have the warning. It's just really annoying.
Are we gonna stick with the falling tree mod by the one guy, or are we gonna use the Cerulean one? Because the Cerulean one, since we already have a Cerulean mod, I feel like it would be better to just use the Cerulean one.
Alright.
But we could just use the Rookham, but I can't pronunciate that username.
I didn't know there was another falling tree mod, so that's the one I've been using.
It's not called Falling Tree, it's called Tree Harvester, but it's by,
that's why I don't know it. Yeah, sure.
Okay. I mean, it's the exact same, it's basically the exact same mod, but I think it has a higher base default tree size. But either way, you had planned on changing it, so... And you can customize
They're fixing the config.
Hunger withdrawal and stuff like that, yeah. Armor's refabricated. Ferret core already installed. Footprint. A lot of these are actually like already... like updated, so...
Nice. That's helpful.
So all I'm doing is typing in the name and just clicking the install button. That was like the main reason I really enjoyed what is it? Modrinth, because it had the quick install feature. They added it to CurseForge now. Yeah. And also
it's been on CurseForge just as long as I've been using CurseForge, so I don't know. But
I mean, did you only recently start using CurseForge?
No, I've been using it for a couple of years.
Oh. Then I just wasn't paying enough attention. That is a very fair thing that it was probably just me not paying attention.
I think I've been using it around 2 or 3 years. No, I was using it for Homio's SMP. I didn't get started into Java until about 3 years ago. But it took me a minute to get into modded Java, so about 2.5, 3 years. Something like that.
Okay, so the dual ride, which I didn't even know was a feature, doesn't work. Or isn't an option.
Okay. That one's fine.
I didn't even know we had it, so...
Yeah, I need to get better at explaining what we got.
I don't mean to say, oh, I didn't even know we had it, to like...
But no, this is like flat out a thing that is consistently happened. Like, oh, I didn't know we had that mod. I think I've heard that from every single person in the server at one point or another, or something or other. So
Well,
I need
feel like
flat out,
because
just
you're
need to get
saying
better
it
about
so
it.
much, I feel like I'm... I know, but I feel like
No,
I'm...
no, no,
like,
you
yelling
good.
at you.
It's,
You need to
I'm
stop
trying to
yelling.
remind myself. This block? Yes. I think I'm almost completely done with the south end. I just have to extend out your portal and the creeper portal. And then I'll probably wrap up for the day. Or at least, like, wrap up stream. And then I'll be back on later after
But we'll
lunch.
keep digging afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the Manhattan? What the
Mhm.
hell? The... I don't even know how to pronounce that. Manningham Mills?
Uh,
Well, either way, it's not an option, so...
I don't have that. When I look up man in my version of the mod pack, it brings me Almanac and too many renames. So I don't know. I don't have that one.
Where are you searching it? Are you searching it in...
In Modron.
Modron?
In my version of the mod
Do you
pack.
have a mod menu?
Yeah. I opened up Modron
Search
for
it in the
that.
mod menu.
Mod.
Uh...
Yeah. Oh. Why is this in here but not in... What?
Yeah, I have no idea what it is.
Website? Yes. What is this?
Mm-hmm. Probably a dependency. Not really. Oh, I just won't nifty ring.
I don't know.
No, don't tell me we have to lose nifty cards. I just started using them. Oh. Not the nifty cards.
I would actually, if we can't do nifty cards, I'd prefer to stay on this version then. Because as much as it'd be nice to have the other things, I do seriously plan on using nifty cards. Like, immediately. I was gonna plan on using them this week, next week.
It's 0.8, not 0.10. That's the only reason I can't find it. It's for 0.10.
Uh,
0.8, not 0.10.
what did point 8 was just bug fixes, I think. It doesn't actually do anything.
Probably. But that allows the spare backport, so... Let me go...
Can we find upgrades for 0.8? Minecraft,
Yeah. We have them.
21.8.
Two mods that I was... The two mods that we were even doing this for, were for... It's like... For the... What is it? The... Shelves, it's 0.6 to 0.8. And then for the spear, it's 0.8 to 0.10. So... I was
That'd
just
work.
doing the latest one. So yeah.
121.8 is bug fixes.
Yeah, that's fine. I just start.
Game screen occasionally freezes while the game keeps running. Entity and block entity textures come corrected over time. Flickering graphical corruption. Texas Atlas come corrupted over time. Entity and block entities are lit incorrectly. Items in inventory and text are rendered in a solid color after a while. Some items sometimes becoming invisible. Items in inventory are lit incorrectly after a while. Game crashes when loading a resource pack. So yeah, those are the fixes.
But yeah,
that's probably why 128 was released so soon after 1.7. Oh my god, what has happened to my mouse?
Okay, well, just remaking the re-up for it with nifty carts.
Oh my god. My mouse decided to suddenly become ridiculously fast. Okay, there we go. I'm turning down my sensitivity.
I mean, some of the mods that we did end up losing when I was originally remaking it possibly come back.
Yeah. Could work out in the end.
Yeah.
That works out. Perfect.
Just means I know most of these already will be usable because they're up to 0.10.
That block. That block. That one. Way too much lava. Alright, you! It's a lovely cave.
Oh,
it has a giant lava waterfall. Oh, my frames. Great. Oh, yay, better third person.
And your banner text.
Hey! Nice.
So that works out.
Found a compromise.
You think Blasting Plus comes back?
Perhaps. If Blasting Plus is just a collection, there are individual mods. If not?
It does. I'm saying it does.
Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. Keeping with the Blahaj plush and not the Blahaj totem.
Okay.
Well, I'm asking.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay. Do we want to add Call Your Dog?
Actually, yeah. That'd be a good one, because I'm pretty sure Misty has a couple dogs.
I have a couple of dogs, but I don't like to bring them.
I wish the horn worked longer distance, but I really don't.
The only reason it doesn't work longer distance is because they're not loaded. You can easily make a,
chunk loader?
yeah, a Pearl chunk loader, because those work in this version. And just to have that area.
That might honestly be a good thing to have it spawn anyway, because of the farms I have going there.
Because I need to set up...
And we could really have infinite iron.
Yeah, I need to expand the creeper farm up 2 layers. And so Mumbo Jumbo just recently made like 2 or 3 videos of him just building like a little like farm district.
Ooh.
And I may or may not rip a couple of his farms that he did.
Out of my face, thank you.
For this server.
Nice.
So, Because a lot of them are like ones that I need. Because there's a bamboo one, there's like a bunch of them.
I'm gonna think of... I'm gonna be honest, the only thing I know about Mumbo during the season is just the geese. Just the geese and the... wind turbines again.
Yeah. Because I specifically, so I'm the few people, I only watch, I only watch Mumbo off the Hobbit craft.
Hmm.
But I've been
Hobbit?
started recently watching, what is it? Gymnite.
Hmm. I've been watching Grian since before he joined Hermitcraft. And...
Oh yeah, same with, Mumbo, it was just more of...
Yeah. And I also started this season watching Doc, Zuma, and Corrales.
Okay.
Oh, lag. Lovely.
Also, me making the mod pack, for you. So all you have to do is literally copy all of the mods and then drag them into the server host.
Yep.
Or who are we using the host?
We're using Logic servers.
Ah. I've never used
Because
it.
it's one of the cheaper options that allowed for a decent server as well. Because I'm only paying $8 for, I think, 8 RAM or something like that.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. It's really good, and we can actually have voice chat working. I used to pay, I think it was $5, but we had a 10-person limit on Minehut. But Minehut, you physically can't do voice chat. The way the servers are set up, it doesn't let you to, and there's no workaround.
Right.
Very happy to have Logic servers. Plus, the way I found out about the server was from one of Zuma's sponsored videos, so I got a coupon for the first month, so it was only like $4.
Nice.
Yeah. Or it might have been the first month was free or something. I can't remember what it was, but I did get a little cheap the first month.
Where is it? No, not just it. I think our just sent mod's getting stripped from us.
Damn.
Oh, dual rides back.
Oh, well. One for another.
I have to... I think...
I wonder if we could find a better SIP mod. Because there are other SIP mods out there. And I know... It's slightly annoying that the SIP mod, you don't actually move the camera at all, so you can't even tell if you're sitting.
So the SIP mod, it does move the camera, and I've used it before, and it really does... It moves the camera, and it's really good. Which we could do. There's also, I think, honestly, the SIP mod would probably be the best one. And it's right here. So do you want me to just add it?
Yep.
Okay.
That'd be perfect. I wonder. Probably not, because they're hostile. Could we pick up the shulkers? Because my mind wandered back to you needing shulkers. I doubt it, but it would be worth a thought. Because then it'd be a lot easier to put them in the minecart.
If anything, we can do a config.
And change it so we can actually pick up the hostiles. Because I know you can do it in creative, it's probably just turn it on so you can do it in survival. Oh, that'd be great for the piglins too. For piglin farms.
You were struggling so hard for that farm.
Yeah, and it's not even that useful. Like, it's there, we have it, it's not that useful. And I need to fix the AFK spot, so it's actually easy to get up and you don't have to fly to it.
I went to it for some gold. It doesn't really work that well.
Did you AFK at the top?
Mm-hmm.
All the way at the top above the farm?
Yeah, for like a couple of hours, and I got like not much. Like I don't remember exactly how much, but it wasn't much.
I got a lot from AFKing there. It was filling up chests pretty quickly, even just in a half hour.
And
maybe because of your chunks? Because you have a lot of chunks open? I don't know.
Because my simulation distance is down real low. I don't know.
Alright, I just have to move your portals and then I'll wrap up stream.
Okay. And I'm almost done with the thing.
Mods?
Yeah. Like I'm down to the peas.
Nice. We'll see if Pat survives.
It does.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, I got this one.
Repurpose structures. Right click to harvest. EI. EI. I'll just do REI. Signed paintings. Simply voice chat.
I just...
What do we have
made a...
SIP mods?
There's a SIP... Just sit lets you sit anywhere. Sit mod lets you sit in the chairs and slabs. Or in the stairs and slabs. So they name the same thing, but they do different things.
So just sit's gone, but the sit one is... Just sit is gone, but sit is still here.
Nice.
And I'm pretty sure... What is the status mod?
The status mod is the little icons next to our names so we can say if we're streaming or if we don't want people to sleep.
Oh.
It's not necessary, but it is really nice to have, especially the no sleep part.
I believe it's this one?
Content creator status mod, or whatever it's titled.
It's just called status. I was looking at who made it.
Ah.
Storage delay. Up and storage drawers, because that's... Yeah. Storage drawers is the one that we... Yeah.
Because the creeper and your portals are connected up. If you accidentally go down the creeper one, you just take another turn now.
Yeah.
Oh. This.
Okay.
Right, I still needed that. I didn't need to get rid of it yet. Lovely lag. Oh my goodness, piglins. There's like 4 of them sitting at your at the creeper farm.
Yeah, they tend to do that.
I just hit them into the water. Let them drown.
Poor guys. So mean.
They're in the way.
What is visual keys?
When you're in the control menu, you can click on, or keybind menu, you can click open keyboard at the bottom right. Yeah. I wish on CurseForge there's a better version where you can actually like full on edit it from that, but we don't got that, so. And I'm pretty sure that's a forge, not a fabric.
Oh, and I'm done. Apparently Zoomify was the last one, so I'm done.
Nice. And I'm almost done with the creeper portal. I think I have to move it twice more. Once to a middle spot, and then its last spot, and it'll be fine.
Okay, let me go ahead double check that this... Oops. Because there's a fair chance I forgot a dependency.
Yeah, it's real. This is it's so slow, but I know if I do any more than like the 4 or 5 blocks in between that I've been doing, it just breaks, and it's goddamn impossible to fix it after.
Yippee! Oh, boots.
There you go. And after I place this obsidian, all of the portals in the South District should be properly moved. The jungle portal's just gonna get a flat-out new portal, because I can put it in a better spot that's actually in the jungle.
How do you share mod packs or mod runs?
Export. And then, the MCR file, I think?
Yep.
And somehow I've ended up with more obsidian than I started with.
Yay.
Despite making the portals bigger.
We're taking the corners.
I made the portals bigger too, though. So I don't know. And I've been placing corners. So I ain't got a clue. Did I forget a portal? Did I? Yes, I did. That's how.
Okay, well, check your Discord DM. Oh, I forgot those 2 things. Let me go add those.
I forgot another portal too. Okay, there's 2 portals missing. That would be why. -9 or -9? Eat. That's
so
what
glad I sent that to you.
Or one load. My mind exactly.
I heard you say it. I just found a very nice mod. Guess what the mod is?
Oh? What is it?
Respawning shulkers.
Oh. Hell yeah.
Shulkers is where they respawn. Hey,
Throw that in.
William too.
Hey!
I love this dude. He has like the most random mods, but they always come in clutch.
That's fantastic. I have aesthetic sounds on, and apparently I left the overworld at just the perfect time that it started playing a sound, so I opened to the nether, and I just hear birds tweeting, like, That's not right.
There you go. There's our updated pack.
Yay! Thank you.
This.
I just gotta place the Guardian Farm portal, and then we'll wrap up the stream, and I'm gonna go figure out what in the world I'm having for lunch.
Oh, that's so. Oh, I love that. So I went to leave the little hole. Forgot the schematic. Went to go step on the schematic like as if it was real blocks. Fell straight through and into lava.
Well,
I'm fine.
there we go. And thankfully the Guardian Farm wasn't cursed this time. Yeah, chicken.
Chicken?
Nope, that's it. That's a schematic. That's the schematic. I didn't click ignore entities. I don't know why there's a chicken under the floor in my schematic. Probably a baby zoglin, but there's a chicken in my schematic.
Chicken. Dude, the word chicken
Oh,
is
that chicken from Popeye. Oh my! How much of this is schematic and how much is this is all just real people? Okay, there's just a horde of zombie piglins, and hoglins by the shopping district portal.
Yum. Yeah, that was like the main thing. That's the whole reason I'm not upgrading my boots to like a better one, because it's just the piglins that are annoying. Because they'll hit me while I'm
The
flying.
diamond
Stop flying.
will do all three.
Yeah, but the blue looks, it clashes. The blue clashes with the purple.
Fair enough. And my hammer only used 12,000 durability for that.
I mean, to be fair, I'd probably switch my what is it? I want to work on getting the texture pack working so I can have my flower armor back, but it's...
Oh yeah.
But because of the advanced netherite, it doesn't work on those. I just want
Oh
mainly
yeah.
my flower tools back. But I have to figure out how to do mod or do texture packs, and I'm not particularly that inclined, like that technically inclined.
Hmm. I know just enough of slight modding, mostly Googling, to make the server work, and that's what I do.
Yeah. I'll probably just end up watching a video. Why is that full? Is that seriously full? That is very much full. I don't have any emeralds. Where are all my emeralds?
Oh, because I killed big ones, yeah.
There's my emeralds.
Hoglin heads. I do have a spot for Hoglin heads, good. And then a bunch of backpacks full of nothing but netherrack.
Not that chicken hop.
Do I need as much netherrack? Absolutely not. Do I have it anyway? Yup.
Sound like Big Mac from My Little Ponies.
Yup. I forgot I got another cat. I don't even know if I recorded that one.
Probably not.
I think I might have, but I don't know if it actually made it into a video or not. I think I did.
I don't remember. You probably did.
It might have been in between while I was gathering all those quartz. I got another one. It's the the ragdoll skin, and I named him Marshmallow.
Oh.
Oh.
No, I quit the game because I'm updating Essential.
Do I have enough iron? I have enough iron. I'm very curious of going through all of my iron traders, all my toolsmiths, if that's enough to repair the destructor hammer. Because it's surprisingly good XP.
I forget you have them as foxes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're cute but annoying.
So like, oh,
Yeah.
what did they make fox too?
Yes, they do. It's fun when they don't have a job because they're just naked foxes running around.
What do you mean naked?
Excuse me? There we go. I can finally build up my own emerald stash again.
Oh, close.
Boop. Boop. Boop, boop. If you would work. Boop, boop. Thank you. Oh, because it's not. Oh.
Your villagers. Does it squish them? Like
Oh, yeah. Hold on, let me sleep. I'm gonna dusty on my chest. Okay. Boop. I'm pretty sure it should. Yep. Honestly, it works better with these guys than anything else. And yeah, there's so many things I want to do. Because my onion farm doesn't work. And honestly, it's kind of pointless to have that. Especially now that I have the mini auto crop. I don't know what I'm going to do with those.
I haven't really been in your farm, seeing like your crop farms. I've only seen like your mob and iron.
There's a auto rice farm I made over here. And then there's auto crop over here, but the onion. Yeah. But the onion doesn't really work, because the carrots, I need to switch this to storage, makes this, while the onions only make that. So that's a huge discrepancy, because villagers don't like to consider that the onions are things they can pick up, so they don't run to grab them. So they just despawn. But honestly, my mini auto crops make far better, far quicker than that. So I'm tempted to just completely gut the inside and move or reuse the villagers elsewhere.
Like, if you want to move them over to my base, you can. I need to probably start a villager area for my base.
They're all confirmed farmers with a few Fletchers. Honestly, the Fletchers can be moved upstairs, because we do have a Fletcher room.
Are they all locked?
Yeah, they're locked, is the thing.
Okay. That's fine. I'd probably just make a farming house then.
Yeah, go for it.
Just probably just put them in like a little like hole and then let me know when I could start yoinking them. We'll just drag my happy gas like a happy gas to your base and just drag them away.
Need a thing. Oh. You suck. I do want to add another entrance to my base. Sooner than later. Stay in your spot, Doug. It's always Doug. I plan on doing one, technically 2 more expansions.
Okay.
I plan on adding another 2 sets of rooms over here, another 2 set over here, and then I'm gonna make a staircase out this way, which should end about over here, and have a staircase basically on all of the directions of my base.
Seems fair.
And I don't even know what I'm gonna put in any of those rooms. I'm just gonna have them empty until I need them for something.
I gotta finish the let's see.
I don't even need like half the stuff I have. I honestly might make one of those rooms just my own personal room.
Right.
I kind of have my base upstairs, but I never really use that.
That's kind of why I don't really use my bed. My
I brought a bed down here just because I was tired of spawning back up at spawn. So I have a bed in my inventory and then a bed sitting back there.
Up in the top of my mushroom.
Ah, yeah.
So I'm just like, yeah, I have to climb up the ladder to get up there.
If you make the mushroom bigger, you could make a window that you could fly through.
I probably need to. I have a build like idea design thingy-majiggy that I saw on TikTok that I plan on building as like a bigger house. Just for right now, what my house is just functional, basically.
Where? I want to decorate this more. Because right now it's semi-form, but it's mostly function with just enough form that it isn't boring. Because I want to add in, I have the copper heart, and I want to add in a bunch of copper decals everywhere. Because it was supposed to be each tube represents every farm I have. But I haven't changed that since the first 2 tubes. So I need to add quite a few more, and I want tubes running through the entire base.
Right. Yeah, the main reason my storage is down at the bottom and it's just like so open, and the reason it's been down there is just because I'm one of those people who don't particularly intend to build a house, and just everything's on the lawn. Just it's there. Because it's so accessible. Why do I need to move it inside?
That's fair. Yeah, close things. Close margarine. Deal with that later. Okay. Fantastic. I need to go get food. I need to get food. I am hungry. It is like... Food. Yeah. I will talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Are we updating tonight, or is that gonna be a tomorrow?
I can do that tonight.
Okay. I mean, is that something we do have to...
I have no other plans today, so...
That I was getting at, we have to let everybody know.
Yeah.
That you're doing that.
I'll do it everybody after I eat lunch, and give them till tomorrow. And if they don't message back by tomorrow, I'll start DMing people.
Okay. I hadn't claimed any of my bits, so I just had 1,000 bits just sitting. Or not bits, the XP for your channel.
Channel points.
I had 1,000 sitting because I've just been working whenever I play.
You can claim some attention.
I could. No, I think I'll just...
Or you can save up for Drown, or Nah. I think Billy Bob's saving up for Nah.
I don't even know what they do.
Give me attention doesn't do anything, it's just there. Drown, I go make a pot of tea. Nah is end stream. However, I also have another channel point redemption called Nuh-uh for 100, which immediately cancels any channel point redemption, including the 20,000 Nah.
Imagine I just do 20,000 Nah and then do the Nuh-uh right after.
Yeah.
Just like make you think you're ending stream and then do the Nuh-uh. Like, really? Because it's cheap to do the Nuh-uh.
That's the point. It's just goofiness that I had fun setting up.
Well, anyways, later.
News. No one to street raid, so. Alright, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
There is no one to raid, so that'll be it. That was a good 2.5 hours. I'll take it. I need to go get food. You all have a great day. Thank you for making it this far in the stream, if you have. Thank you, VOD watchers. I do plan on streaming tomorrow, which is the 4th. I will be streaming, hopefully, 9 a.m. PST again. And this has actually worked out really well, so I'm going to take a look at what I'm doing each day, and we'll try and actually plan out a schedule where I can be like, oh, we're going to go do this thing, or we're doing that. So yeah,